Okay, let's go ahead and get started. We have several things to discuss today. Some of them are new, some are. We want to go through the December 2020 child count numbers and that information so that you can see what happened this past year as far as child count was concerned. We're going to just talk briefly about the evaluation component. We're going to talk about professional development modules, telepracticing sessions, the unintelligible EL students, February training for leave, and then recovery. Excuse me. Yeah. Okay, this pie chart shows you the students with disabilities with the primary exceptionalities listed for the 2021 school year. And this was all derived from the December 1 child count. Just a reminder that this is for primary exceptionality only.
Governor's not going to do anything different.
That. If you guys could make sure that you have your self muted, that would be great. Sorry about that. With that, just remember that, of course, we are not only we serve not only primary exceptionalities, but also service-related service providers. So this is not definitely the total number of students that we see. When we factor in the number of students that we see with the primary exceptionality of CV, we are by far the greatest service provider of anyone within the state as far as serving students with exceptionalities is concerned. We right now are at 21%, and I want to point this out to you. If you look down here at speech language impairment, between 2016 and 2021, our numbers have dropped 2,570 students, 547 students, I'm sorry. Part of that is because people have left the state. Part of it is because right now, especially during the pandemic, a lot of parents are choosing to homeschool. And those students, of course, are not eligible for service. But part of it is where you guys have been trying to do a really good job of making sure that when you do new placement, you're doing it for students who have an educational impact and require the service because of that. So there are some good things to look at as far as that number is concerned. Our total number this year of students with primary exceptionality of communication disorder, excuse me, is 9,674. But that also brings up a question about your caseload and your positions. That's the reason that I know that the caseload numbers are dropping. A lot of you guys are using steps as well. And so with steps, which is exactly what we want you to do, those students do not count on your caseload, of course. So that's all the more reason for us to try to move forward with trying to identify students with language disabilities. And so I have to apologize. I have not been able to meet with Susan back yet about that. Things have really been hectic, to say the least, at the department. I'm sure you guys can identify with that because I'm sure it's just as hectic in your schools and in your counties. So I do have a schedule to meet with her about that because, we need to go ahead and start identifying those students. Number one, because they're missing out on the services that they need. But number two, I don't want anyone to have their positions cut or that kind of thing because of their numbers, their caseload numbers right now, because those numbers are going to go up. And if you're doing things properly, if you're using an MTSS system like STEPS, to be able to address the needs of the students who may not be eligible or who, may make the corrections by using that, we shouldn't be penalized for that. And we do know that we're going to be identifying more language students, and you need to have the time to see them. So I just wanted to point that out to you to tell you great job for one thing, but also to tell you that we are working on trying to make sure that we can go ahead and start seeing those students because, honestly, if we don't update policy 2419 until 2022, there are a lot of students that we're not observing. And you can kind of understand, too, why they decided to delay it to that point, because if you try to hold the public meetings and all those kinds of things that have to happen every time that policy is revised, it just would be nearly impossible to do right now during COVID. So I just wanted to draw that to your attention. And the other thing I wanted to draw to your attention is, excuse me, that's just another chart that shows the child count. But I wanted to show you that the increase in autism spectrum disorders for students 3 to 21 over the past 9 years. There are so many more, twice as many students being identified with autism now. And with those students being in our school system, ASHA says that we have a responsibility to work with those students because part of their whole disability is based upon their communication impairments. So I just wanted to let you see those numbers and kind of consider how your caseloads have changed over the past 9 years. There have been some big changes, and this is definitely one of them. Before we go on, are there any questions about that? Because I think that, that's definitely the thing.
I don't see any questions.
Okay. Thank you. Excuse me. All right, then we will move forward. And the evaluation template, I apologize. It wasn't until I was going in to make the PowerPoint for this meeting that I noticed that I was supposed to have sent that to you guys. So I just wanted to tell you that I updated that form. I did take out this piece and changed it to what we had discussed. And I eliminated the section that said that they met the eligibility criteria. So that way we are not predetermining what's going to happen with that student. And I put that form in your Teams group because at first I was going to share it, as an email so you could pass it on to your therapist. But, I thought if you guys have determined to use it, I don't know who's determined to use it and who hasn't. If you guys have determined to use it, I think you should be the one who sends it out to your staff. And I will post the updated form in the Teams group for the special ed directors so they will see that we have made the changes. Let's see. I did want to point out, because I think some people are scrambling to try to get those 12 professional development hours in. And honestly, as far as plans that we have to offer statewide trainings right now, we don't have that many in process. So if you need to get that 12 hours, just a reminder that on West Virginia Learns, there are 6 modules at least, plus the supervision modules that you're welcome to take, even if you're not supervising someone. If you need professional development hours, and for those supervision modules, of course, you can get ASHA CEUs as well. Anything that we do offer, we will try to do ASHA CEUs for you guys so that you can receive get ASHA hours that way.
Leanne, I guess it relates to the supervision modules. If anyone elects to start taking them now, would they just let us know? Because everybody who has taken those modules is on the same list, and I check them weekly, but I might miss your name. So just send me an email or Leanne an email and let us know if you've started to take those supervision modules, because they need to be completed within the 30-day time period once you start. So that would be real helpful to me because the names start running together. There's been about, I guess, 40 or 50 at this point who've taken it. So also, Leanne, there is a question about are there county number breakdowns for the percent of students being served under CD?
Yes, there are, but there, your county special ed director has those. If you email me, I mean, it's all public knowledge. It's all public information, and I have all of them by county. But it's hard for me to know who needs to see that. So if you email me, or you can check on Zoom, West Virginia has that information as well. I'll be glad to send it to you, or show it to you. As far as the supervision modules are concerned, please be sure to email me after you've completed them, and make sure that you have added your name to that form that we created, so that we can track who's completed them and who hasn't. Libby's helping, because it's really been kind of daunting to have to go in and check all of your quizzes. We have to contact you guys if you haven't completed the quizzes and that kind of thing. As far as I'm concerned, we would love to kind of help keep track of things for you, but we really just don't have the man hours to do it. So please be responsible for your own, as far as when you start and when you finish that 30-day time period. But let us know and be sure and fill out that form. And we can send out that link again. We can post it in your Teams group to share with your county SLPs. But we appreciate any help you can provide us as far as that's concerned, because we want to make sure you get the credit you deserve. But what I wanted to mention too about professional development modules is, I know that West Virginia Learns is very difficult to navigate. We're supposed to be getting a new management system soon, and hopefully it'll be a little easier to be able to use. But in the meantime, I just wanted to make sure everybody remembered. And we also have some new lead therapists who may not remember that these are, or know that these are available online. You can use these however you want. Some people, I think, contacted me and wanted to know if they could use them to train, like to have one module a month for their monthly meetings and that kind of thing. You're welcome to use them in any way you can. Just remember that these, you will receive a CMH certificate. And it used to be that when you completed these, you contacted Karen Haynes. Now you're going to contact me. I have the CMH certificates to send to you. And I'll try to send in an email about this too, so you can share this with your SLPs. But you can get CMH hours for it to use for ASHA. If you complete them, you have to score, the 100 on all the quizzes. But I've gotten some people who've just done them recently. They needed them, I guess, for ASHA, for their ASHA certification this year. So just a reminder that those are available. As far as telepractice is concerned, I just wanted to mention, we had talked about the fact that we met with Microsoft before. A team of SLPs met with me and an OT. They contacted us after they had had time to talk with their, team and go through and see what tools they could offer us and what they couldn't. And they contacted Rhea specifically because she had a lot of information to share with them and had videos to share with them, which was so helpful. And they contacted Mark Moore from our state, from the WVDE, who does our Office 365 trainings. And he also does, of course, Teams trainings, and myself. And we met with them just as a small group with some of their staff. And they are actually going to start joining our telepracticing meetings to share a tool and information with us. That way they can hear what we're trying to do, and also share some information. And Mark is going to be doing some trainings, at least webinars, that we can share with you guys too about how to do different things. So I'm really excited about what's going to happen with that, and just want to thank Rhea and her sister Annie Laverty again, and Kim Porter, and all the therapist from Putnam County who assisted with these meetings. And we have a planning meeting with them before our meeting on the 29th. So as we find out more information or as they share more options that they've added to teams, we'll be sure and let you guys know. I just wanted to mention that when I made the video, the little webinar about doing the unfamiliar listener accommodation for unintelligible EL students, I used the wrong code. I used R28, it's actually R30. So I corrected that in the webinar. I said it was posted. It hasn't been because I got caught up with something else this morning and didn't get that done, but I will. Can you guys raise your hands if you've had anybody who's requested that you consider somebody for that accommodation? I'm not seeing anyone. So it's like I said, I see somebody. Okay, I can't see the name on it real clearly. Sarah Martin. So Sarah, you had somebody. Did they have any issues with trying to make that determination or getting the language sample? Did everything go all right with that?
They have collected it.
Okay.
And they're turning it into the salad lab, and it's in that process now. So I haven't heard back.
Okay, awesome. Well, it's like I told you before, I really didn't think there were going to be that many students who are going to be involved in this. So I'll be anxious to hear, how things went with it when they actually do the test. As far as the last thing I heard, they still plan to do the evaluations. That doesn't mean the assessment, the statewide assessment. That doesn't mean that hasn't changed or will change in the future. But anyway, I just want to make sure that we were on track as far as that was concerned. We had asked you guys last time, I think for maybe November, I can't remember now, kind of running together, but we'd asked for any suggestions or topics that you wanted us to discuss if we did a leads training like we typically did in the spring. And we honestly didn't receive any topics. And you know what? I get it. I think part of it is because you guys are just so overwhelmed with the day-to-day stuff. Trying to think about, spending some time getting more training and that kind of thing is sometimes difficult. So we are not going to hold a leads conference in February. I don't want to do anything that's going to be, make more work for you or make things more stressful or that kind of thing. We just wanted to be able to support you if you needed it, like we always had. So if you have any specific information needs or specific topics that you would like for us to try to get covered, please contact me and let me know that, and we will attempt to make an attempt to provide that training. But I don't see any sense in trying to train you on things you don't need to know right now, or it's just not a good time for you to hear them. One thing I will mention is we do have a plan to go ahead and have the people who did our training for us in August on that virtual summit that we had, Karen Haynes, Gail Nelden, and Nora Smith, who talked about the comprehensive language evaluations for students with hearing impairment. They're working on a document for us. It's a short document about that with information that's important for you guys. And they are going to do a training for us in the spring on that, a webinar. So that's in the works. And then when we ask for information about ethical concerns that people had, we had maybe 10, I don't know if we've gotten any more in, but we had probably 10, close to 10 ethical situations that people were concerned about. So the first session that we did, we talked about Medicaid. And honestly, it was really one kind of compound question and maybe another one, but only got through two of the questions. So what we discussed is possibly, since people need ethics hours anyway, is possibly going ahead and doing another 1 or 2 ethics trainings this spring. So we will let you know more information about that as that rolls out. Honestly, we've been trying to work on some other projects and get those started. So we haven't made a plan for that yet, but that is in the works to offer more ethics training based on the situations. And we can always try to get some new situations as well. You know, some of the situations that were discussed, I don't know how many people were able to or were joining that training, but some of the situations that were discussed were really kind of concerning to me. That's the reason I selected them. And one of them was feeling like that they are committing fraud if they go ahead and see a student and bill Medicaid. Is there something, Libby?
No, I'm sorry. I was waiting for you. I had a question from the group and I accidentally coughed. Sorry.
Okay. What's your question?
Paula wants to know if you're still planning on doing the second day of flea training.
Yes, flea training.
And the ethics training, was it recorded? I know it was recorded, but I don't know that we've shared that yet.
I don't think we have, come to think of it. So we can post that in your Teams group. I know I keep saying this, but it's the truth. I had first my niece and now my nephew is helping me. And next week it's our plan to really get on creating a YouTube channel so that we can have all these things shared easily with your therapist or private YouTube channel. And that way contractors can see them as well. So we'll add that to your Teams group for right now because I don't have a Teams group for just the general SLPs. But we'll be glad to add that to your Teams group and then put it in the YouTube channel. But what I started to say about Medicaid was the fact that, continuing to bill Medicaid even though the child's not making progress, that's not something you should do. I think people still, and I understand part of it is because they feel they're being pressured by their counties to do Medicaid billing and to get as much Medicaid billing as possible. But I'll say it now. I say it in every Medicaid training. We had a Medicaid training this morning in Putnam County. In every training that we do, I always say Medicaid does not dictate the service you provide. Service the child needs is the service you provide. And if you can bill Medicaid for it, that's awesome. If you can't, then don't bill Medicaid. So to continue to bill for somebody who's not making progress or you think that needs to be dismissed, that like the parents won't let them, I would not bill Medicaid for that student. If you choose to go ahead and see them and you can't get them in to step down or get them dismissed, then that's your decision. But don't feel compelled to bill Medicaid for a student that you don't feel like you're providing that service to. So that was one of the questions that we dealt with. And the other, was just feeling the pressure to do a lot of TCM and that kind of thing, I think. And, if we can bill for TCM, it's the same thing. If we can bill, then bill. But, try to make sure that you don't make a blanket statement about anything. Because I know that some people say, I'm not going to bill TCM for any month except the month that I do progress notes. Because that's the only time I feel like I spend the 15 minutes. I know especially right now, it's hard to keep all your documentation straight because you're doing in-person and virtual learning and that kind of thing. But if you can accumulate the documentation that you've got a 15-minute billable unit for a month, then go ahead and bill a TCM. It doesn't have to occur, of course, at one time. And I would think that, if you're having a lot of virtual learning happening or you're doing teletherapy within your county, the students, that you would have to be contacting the teacher periodically just to see how things are going. But do not bill Medicaid or TCM or anything else that you feel is not something that you should bill for. That's just not something that anyone expects you to do. We did say that if you feel like there's a pressure within your county to do something like that, to please contact us and we will try to kind of take care of that for you behind the scenes. Because, a lot of times there's a misunderstanding. There's a misunderstanding within the county and they think that they are doing the very best thing possible for these students and for the county to try to get as much money as possible. And it's just, sometimes we just need to make some clarifications and that's all it takes. So I just wanted to mention that. But if any other topics come up that you would like for us to try to get some training for you on, I think probably right now telepractice has been the dominant thing, and thanks to Rhea for doing that for us, because she's done some amazing things for us so far. So just let us know, and we'll be glad to try to arrange it for you. If you noticed our website now, or if you go to our website now, instead of talking about reentry and having reentry toolkit and that kind of thing, that's still there, but we're starting to talk about recovery. And this is the website link to our recovery website. You can just type in recovery when you get to our website, and that page will come up. With that, there are a lot of exciting things that are happening, and a lot of things I just wanted to give you a heads up, about. One of them is the Elementary and Secondary Schools Emergency Relief Fund, and that's the new money that will be coming to states instead of the CARES Act. The states got the CARES Act money in the fall, and that money is still within the counties, and they're trying to get that spent, I think. But we're receiving a new round of money, a new round of funding. And it's going to be a lot more than the CARES Act funding was. The exact numbers, we're not sure, but it's going to be a lot of money. And with that, the money is supposed to be used to recover student skills, because we know that students have lost skills no matter how hard we have tried, and no matter how much we've bent over backwards. There are students who have lost skills. There are still students in some counties who haven't received instruction or had contact because there's no internet access and that kind of thing. We know that's happening. We also know that a third of the students for the first semester have failed. A third have failed in some way. So with that, this new money is supposed to be used to help recover the skills that the students have lost. That's got to happen. And they can be very creative in how they do it, but because there's going to be that money, one of the things they can use the money for is for COVID-19 recovery services. And we've talked about that before at the beginning of the year. And you guys have had your IEP meetings by now, I'm sure, to determine how much loss there was and if they needed COVID-19 recovery services to recoup those skills. Honestly, with the way the service delivery has had to go because of the COVID pandemic, some of these skills still may not be recovered. So we are updating that document, the COVID-19 versus compensatory services document. And it's not going to just talk about the loss that they had from March until September. It's going to be talking about the loss they've had from March till now and moving forward, as long as we're still dealing with the pandemic. So with that, part of the money can be used to hire private contractors to provide services to make up for that skill loss. And that can definitely include speech therapy services. The West Virginia Speech and Hearing Association has graciously allowed us to have a couple of spots. I think they gave us spots to be able to advertise on their website, so that we can get access to people who may not work in the school system, but who may be interested in doing some of these kinds of things. I just wanted to give you a heads up that that's going to be coming and that's going to be out there. And I want you to start thinking about how you can address some of those things in your county. You may have therapists in your county who would want to work, take on students to do some recovery services for them, either on the evenings or weekends outside the school day. If that happens, I think you need to make sure that we've talked about this before, in order to prevent there being any ethical questions about it, I think you need to make sure that you have a team of therapists for parents to choose from, and it should not include the therapist who serves that child, because it's just too ethically sticky to say that you're serving a student that you see with an IEP outside the school day. So That's one thing I want you to just kind of have in the back of your minds, how you could kind of organize that and see if people in your county might be interested. But we're also going to put an ad on the virtual website for people to contact me, and we can create a list of people who might be interested in providing those services. Of course, and we can share that with special ed directors and you guys. Of course, another thing that we could consider is, hiring, giving money to clinics in the area and that kind of thing to provide services. And that can include SLP too. But I just wanted you to know there's going to be more information coming out about this. And I'm sure your special ed directors will be sharing information with us about UT. But I think it's exciting because, it's not making the responsibility go on us as far as providing those services. You guys, I'm saying us like I'm still working with you, but it's not going to make it so that your county would feel responsible for making you try to do all that service outside the school day. And it's, they can offer services for that. And if you think about it, there really aren't any tutoring services and that kind of thing they can send students for. So a lot of that money for providing private contractors will be for speech, OT, and PT. So that's exciting. Another thing is the reason that I have Libby post the survey in your Teams group and in the Telepracticing group is because we're trying to compile a list of apps, websites, and materials that you guys could use not only for teletherapy but for in-person learning. What I think is probably going to happen is as they come back to more in each county, whatever each county does, I don't have any, knowledge of that except what's been published in the paper and what they choose to do. But what I will say is that whatever each county does, you might end up doing some teletherapy anyway, just because of the scheduling issues and trying to get into those classrooms. I'm sure they're going to limit children coming out and that kind of thing. So what we want to do is have that list ready to provide the special ed directors. I've already talked to Susan Beck, our director, about the fact that if you would be hired, for instance, to do any private therapy, if they would do an extra duty contract with you guys, do private therapy, it needs to be a commensurate rate is what they would pay private therapists and not $15 or $20 an hour. She agreed with that because the money is going to be there. So that's one of the things we'll be telling the directors. The other thing is we'll be giving them the information that you guys have turned in on the surveys that Libby posted, and that list of equipment and materials that you guys might need. Anything that's on there, if it's with the exception of like microphones and that kind of thing, you could use in person learning. And I think we've talked about it before. Teletherapy is probably going to be one of the tools in your tool belt from now on. I know that I've been contacted by a couple of people, like when there's snow days, for instance. Now their counties are saying you're going to do virtual therapy during that time. So, I think it's going to be a part of life from now on. So while the money is available, I think it's important that you guys get the support you need. And we're going to try to provide that for you through that list. So I just wanted to mention that to you guys and let you know we're not going to take the list down until Monday. So if you have more things you want to add, please be sure and do that. Or if you have therapists in your, in your county who know some really good things to have, please be sure and have them add things because we'd like to have as much information as possible from you guys. Rhea had already sent us a list of equipment before, and we had shared that before. But we're going to share that again, that information plus all the new information you guys are sending. And Libby said we were getting pretty good responses for that. So thank you guys for that. Just a reminder, if you post in our team group to do the @ symbol before you, and find the name of the group before you post so we can make sure everyone sees it and knows there's something to read and provide support for. Now, excuse me. I told you that we did a training in Putnam County this morning, and I know a lot of the therapists in Putnam County personally, they're friends of mine. And when we met with them, usually when I've met with them in the past, they're very talkative. And of course, we've done it, personally before. We've been in person, and this was the first time we've done it virtually. But what I noticed was they were so quiet. They were so quiet. And finally, one of them just said, is anybody else struggling to stay alive? And at that point, I realized that one of the reasons they were quiet was because they're just overwhelmed, you know. And I understand. I understand they're, why everybody's overwhelmed. When I think about what you guys are trying to do, all I can say is that I admire you for doing it, because you guys, it's like I told you before, you've risen to the challenge. But I know it's not easy. So, whenever we ask, how can we support you, we're being very, very sincere about that. So please give us any suggestions about how we can support you or your therapist, as far as all this stuff you're being expected to do is concerned. So if you guys have any ideas right now, you can unmute or you can put something in the chat box. That would be great.
We do have one question from Christy, who's having trouble getting the physician authorization forms back for their Medicaid students, and she wondered if there was any suggestions.
Okay. That's open to you guys. So you guys can just unmute and help Christy if you have any suggestions for that. What do you guys do when you have trouble getting them back? I mean, do you have systems within your county that you've established, or do you have a physician in your county who will do them if you've made all those attempts and you haven't been getting them back? Is there something you guys can help her with? Anybody typing, Libby?
No, I don't see any messages.
I'm sure.
Ria's got something. She says some county board offices, whoops, now we got people typing.
Good, good.
Do you want me to read these, or do you want them to unmute their mics?
You guys can just unmute your mics. Go ahead and tell us. That's what this group is for, to help each other. So, let's help Christy if we possibly can with some suggestions.
So Ria was the first.
Okay.
So Ria, do you want to add your 2 cents, or Laura Lee, or Jennifer, or Heather?
Sure, I can chime in. I personally have people who work in a lot of counties where this has been an issue. Our greatest success in getting the physician's auth form back has been in the county board office actually securing those forms, and not us pushing them through parents or something like that. If we submit those forms to the county board office, then they can fax them to physicians and get them back. And sometimes the lily pad there is we will actually fill out the physician's authorization form. And so it's submittable when the board office receives it. So it prevents whoever that person is intercepting it at the board office from having to fill that out. But that's been our greatest success in getting them back is coming directly from the board office and coming directly back to the board office.
Okay, well, Heather, I know in a county the size of Kamala, it's probably not possible. Can you give us an idea of what you guys do?
Well, everyone tries to make, I think, usually 2 attempts, and we usually fax. I think faxing has been more successful than when we used to mail them. We do not send them through parents at all. We send them directly to the doctor's office, and we do make we have a shared Google Drive, and we do a document that's editable, that anyone can, supply a physician's phone number or address or whatever if it changes or we have a new physician. And so we kind of have a bank of numbers that we can look them up quickly. The other thing is Kanawha County does employ a physician who does physicals for the county when you get a job in like the yearly bus driver physicals. So he will sign them if we can't get the student's physician to sign them, but I'm sure most counties don't have that advantage. Our Medicaid person at the board will not submit them, will not try to get them signed for us. And I think she's based here in Kanawha. her salary is shared through several counties and she works for several counties, and I just don't think it would be possible for her to submit all of those for us.
Okay, Laura Lee, how about you?
Yes, I mail them myself. I don't have that many in Pocahontas County. I have enough though, and I've discovered that sometimes I just have to call them, just make a quick call and say, "Did you get this?" And one time I had, they changed the address from the 911 system update, so they never even got the first one. So I just kind of keep a file of the things that I have. The ones that I'm waiting for. And, I had some time over all this closure when we were working without students. Some of the time I was able to make calls, and then they resend them. So it's not always easy, though, to do all that.
Sure. Any other suggestions?
Jennifer Ross, do you want to say what you do in your special ed office?
This is Wayne County.
She just said that they have someone in their special ed office that does it for them.
Yes, I'm not much help because we just submit our consent forms to the special ed office and they take care of getting the doctor's authorizations.
Okay, that sounds great.
And Leanne, Ashley had a question. Do they send a list of therapists who might be interested in doing recovery services to you?
If they're willing to contract with other counties to do it on the evenings and weekends, they sure could, or even this summer. I mean, there's talk about providing a lot of recovery services this summer. At this stage, it's just talk. But they definitely can if they want to do it virtually and provide it in other counties. Yeah.
And Paula has a link to a free boom deck in the chat.
Oh gosh, that's great. Libby, if I forget, would you, or Paula, if you could go into the Telepractice group and put that link too, that'd be awesome to share it with all them. Those boom cards are really helpful, and that's one of the things we could suggest to the special ed directors is a boom card website membership or something. So that's good. Any other problems that you guys are having that you want to get some ideas from everybody else? Heather, I love the idea of you guys having a list of physicians already ready for everybody with fax numbers and that kind of thing, because that saves so much time having to look up all that information. So that's great. And then the way it's editable, I love that. Any other things you want to ask your group and get some support for?
Not seeing anything.
Okay. Then I heard this morning. Heather, did you want to say something?
Yeah, I just wanted to say thank you really quickly for that news about the extra money that's coming in, because I know for our COVID recovery services for the fall, our special ed office wanted to pay our SLPs $22 per hour to do outside of school recovery services. And of course, we had no takers. So they ended up contracting it for, I'm sure it was more than 3 times as much. But they said they could not pay more because that's what they pay the teachers. So I'm just hopeful that with more money, they'll be able to do more, and some of our therapists will be able to do that. So thank you for that news.
Sure. I'm hopeful too, because if they want to be able to provide their services, they have to pay for them. They have to pay what's fair. And if that's what they provide teachers, then, I understand that they have to consider us as teachers sometimes, as far as some of the regulations and some of the certification type things and the pay scale and all that. But, this is something completely different. And they're not going to get any OTs and PTs are going to do that for $22 an hour, that's for sure. So,
and there's another question about, will the contractors need or will they be required to have a state license?
the WBDE license? No, they won't. If you have, if they do an extra duty contract with you guys, that's one thing. But if they pay for services, let's say of an outside clinic, or let's say that someone has seen the information on the official website and has wanted to contract with them, they do not, to provide those recovery services, have to do that. If they are contracted as an employee, that's something completely different.
What about being having the board of examiners license?
I think in order to do any type of therapy like that as a private contractor, you should have it. If you're a full employee and you're doing an extra duty contract, you would not, as far as I understand. But that was the reason for trying to advertise on the official website, because there are people who have their licensure and their Cs or whatever, who might want to do something, especially virtually or within their county to earn some extra money. And the thing of it is too, is these recovery services aren't going to go on forever. There's going to be a time frame that you're going to recommend that they happen. So, like I said, it's not the same thing as being an employee of the county, working to serve all the students within the county. You're just going to be a private contractor who's providing service at that time to make sure the IEPs are met.
There was a question about whether WVISH is having a conference, and Rhea said it's going to be all virtual this year.
Okay. I know that Rhea, they had made a double plan, trying to plan for any contingency, and it's a shame that, I completely understand why you've done it, but I think that's honestly the only way that school employees would be allowed to go is if it's virtual. So they were going to try even a hybrid model, I think, weren't you, Rhea?
Yeah, we had made initial plans back when we had started to plan it, in basically March of last year. The plan, as everything was actively falling apart at last year's convention, we were, just kind of planning for whatever might happen, but we officially made the decision all virtual.
Okay. Thank you for letting us know that. They can kind of plan for that. And I think that's great because, like I said, I think that way we won't have to have, we won't have the permission to travel and all that kind of thing. So we'll be able to attend. I know that's been a lot easier for me as far as some of the conferences I've been able to attend now because I'm not having to get a travel approval. So. Okay. I just wanted to mention one of my colleagues, Dr. Jason Conaway, who's our autism coordinator, excuse me, shared this quote with us this morning. And I immediately thought of you guys. And it was funny because I had tagged this graphic on Instagram when I saw it, because at the time I just thought, oh, that's really cool. It's a really cool graphic. But what it said was that students can't bloom, which would be the learning, aspect of things, until they Maslow. And when you stop and think about it, if you think about all of the things that are included in the Maslow's hierarchy, there are questions that Creative Speech Lab, I follow her on Instagram. She went in and added some questions, and I'm sure you can't see them here, so I just went ahead and put them on here. But when you're working with your students, I think part of the reason that the therapist this morning in Putnam County said that she was, as anybody else feeling is overwhelmed, feeling like you're not doing the very best you can. She said, some days I just feel like the only thing I accomplish is making a connection with my student. And, we've talked about before that, having that connection with that one caring adult may be the most important thing that happens for that student today. And think about learning or doing speech therapy or anything else until, they have their needs taken care of. Did they have breakfast and did they sleep? Some of them may not have. While the pandemic, we're always talking about the impacts on us, some of you may be actually experiencing this too, as far as maybe losing income from a spouse or that kind of thing. Are they healthy? Some people aren't going to the doctor as much because they're afraid of going and that kind of thing. Do they have a home? When I read that and went back and really looked at her questions, I thought, oh my goodness, that definitely could be a case that a lot of our kids are in. Are they safe? How can they possibly think about other things when these things may be an issue for them? Do they have emotional support at home? There could be times when parents are so involved in what's going on and trying to keep things together that they forget about the emotional support that their child needs, and they may not have anybody else but you. Do they experience success? Trying to make sure that they're reinforced and feel like they do accomplish things. That's so important. And are they creative and curious? These are all things that she felt were questions you should ask for school when you start thinking about your students and learning. And, just remember here again that you don't have to be perfect in what you do to be exactly what that student needs today. I know it sounds strange to still be talking about that now in January, and we've been in school all this time, but honestly, that's where we still are. There's so many different upheavals and so many changes every single day. And, it's a new environment that we have to get used to. And one of those things is to remember every single day that you are making a difference. And the reason I just copied this simple note and didn't make it look perfect was I got this off from Speech and Musings on Instagram. And I just thought, she posts this on her computer every day so that she can remember she is making a difference. And, some of your therapists may be feeling overwhelmed and not saying anything. So, please just make sure that they understand they don't have to be perfect right now. Nobody's perfect right now, not a soul. No matter how hard you're trying, it's not perfect right now. And we're used to trying to achieve that. We just can't do it right now. And just make sure and take care of yourself, because there's only one you. And we need you. The kids need you, and your therapists need you. So be sure and take care of yourself and remind them to take care of themselves. Are there any questions or anything else we can do for you before we let you go?
I was just double checking. And Heather had their hands raised, and Leslie, you had your hands raised. I want to make sure that we've addressed everything that you guys needed.
Okay, well, Libby, you go ahead and stop the recording. Thank you guys for giving us this time today. Please use your team's group to get help from each other. You don't have to wait until we have these meetings. If you have a question for the group, or if you need some